Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Jaws 2, starring Roy Scheider, Lorraine Gary, Murray Hamilton, Joseph Mascolo, Mark Gruner, and Keith Gordon, and directed by Gernot Swerk. Forgive me if I said that wrong. Now, before I get into this review, I just wanted to make an announcement that I didn't realize it was like a great white shark. Not only did I tell you last week that I'm doing this series plus Deep Blue Sea and The Shallows, well, there's another movie that's coming out later this year in the summer, in August, called The Meg, that I might lead it up to later this summer. So I thought, you know what, why don't I just give this a look at and review it. So before I get it, and then that's my announcement for now, and let's get into this review. It's been 4 years since the events of Jaws 1, and they find the Orca, aka Quint's ship, underwater with no captain because he died in the first movie, and suddenly we get another great white shark attack, which was fine, but not Jaws 1 good by definition. The Brody's son, Michael, that doesn't matter, he's just a kid, I'll tell you that much. That's turning into an adult. But a grand opening pool led by Mrs. Brody and Mr. Brody, returned by Roy Scheider, is there with Mrs. Brody, returned by Lorraine Gary, are dancing and are having a grand old time, and I like seeing Roy Scheider and Lorraine Gary back again in this movie. But where's Richard Dreyfuss? Maybe he was filming Close Encounters of the Third Kind at the time, who knows. Other than Mr. and Mrs. Brody, I don't know any of these characters, who any of these characters are, nor should I care about any of them. The Jaws theme still works for this movie, and it's still pretty scary in the 1970s. Chief Brody thinks he sees the shark, but it was just a school of fish, and shoots at it, and the problem with that scene is how can he tell it's a shark, and now he becomes an ass of a man himself, and becomes a laughing joke, and he gets fired as chief for 10 minutes later, and the movie begins to lose me at this point, and we still have 50 more minutes of movie left. Michael sneaks out and goes sailing with his little brother and his friends while his father grounded him earlier in the movie, and that's normal for a teenager to lie to their parents, even if I don't agree with that, but still, I don't like that. Kids, don't get any ideas. Mr. and Mrs. Brody find out Michael went to the lighthouse with his friends out in the water, and they come to the rescue to find Helen, who was with the guy who got killed in an earlier scene, which was a painful acted scene. Then the teenagers with Michael, and he's knocked out when the shark almost ate half of him, and I burst into laughter. It's so painful. The helicopter comes in to save the teenagers, and suddenly the shark will attack the helicopter. And to be honest, I saw that coming, but it's not unrealistic. And the shark will attack the helicopter, and it just came from a million miles away. When the helicopter arrived, I knew that was coming. It was just too predictable. Mr. Brody finds Michael and a couple of others, and he goes to find the other son, Sean. I didn't realize that was his name until he said it at the end. With the rest of the teenagers, and they all get attacked by the shark, and they defeat it by electrocuting him on the sea plug and burn him up to hell. That I did like as an ending of this movie, because then that means I don't have to look at it anymore. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 5.6 out of 10. The original is definitely better by a long shot. I don't care for any of the characters except Mr. and Mrs. Brody. There were things I liked. I liked about like 65% of the movie, and the rest of it I didn't really care for. But at best, this movie is just fine. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next week I will be back with Jaws 3, and until next time, stay out of the water.